Hey humans, it's Hannah. Welcome back to the second channel. This is TheHorrible Stories, and this is the sister channel to Hannah the Horrible. As a lot of you know, we've been doing 7 videos in 7 days leading up to Halloween here, and this is day 7. This is the last video on our little Halloween adventure. I hope you guys have enjoyed this series. Please let me know if you have. You can also let me know by just liking the video. That helps the channel, helps the algorithm, yada yada, you know. So without further ado, we're going to get right into the stories for today. So this first story starts, "Hi Hannah, I'm Addie, she, her, and you can feel free to keep my name in the video. I've been watching/listening to your videos for a few years now, and I'm such a big fan. Thank you for reading my story, and this will likely be long. I'll try my best to make it make sense. So I grew up in a small town in Michigan called Grand Haven. It is right on the shore of Lake Michigan and has a pretty rich history. The town was founded in 1835, so there are many old houses here. When I was a freshman in high school, my parents bought an old Victorian home in Grand Haven that was built in 1872. Photo attached, feel free to share. We'll add the photo here. It's a beautiful house and not overly creepy, but me being 14 was convinced that it had to be haunted because it was so old." That is my thought process too. Anything super old or antique, I'm like, it's haunted. It's gotta be haunted, right? "Shortly after we moved in, my friends and I decided to do a Ouija board during a sleepover. Stupid, I know. It's not stupid if you really don't think anything's gonna happen and you just think it's a game. A lot of people think Ouija boards are total BS. I'm undecided. And so it's probably not really stupid in the moment. If you just think it's dumb and a game and not real, then yeah, I don't know if that's stupid. Not in my opinion anyway. Honestly, I still don't know if I actually believe in Ouija boards. I know a lot of it is psychological and persuasion, but it is very odd how this played out. We started off by lighting candles and saying a prayer. For the first few minutes, nothing happened. We were just asking basic questions. Is anyone here? Are there any spirits in this house? Then the planchette slowly starts to move towards yes when we asked if anyone was there. We freaked out and insisted that none of us were moving it. We then asked, what's your name? It spelled out Ben, which, funnily enough, was my brother's name. Did you pass in this house? And it said no. Do you live in the house? And it said yes. Did you work in the house? And it said yes. Back when it was first built, it had a full staff, which is why we asked. That's what I assumed. Yeah, just that if it was really old, there was probably maids and cooks and cleaners and stuff. After that, we all started getting scared, so we said goodbye and said another prayer. Everyone continued to insist that they did not move it. I told my mom about it, and naturally she was pissed. But for a few weeks, nothing really happened, and we kind of forgot about it. But then things started happening. If anybody out there is paranoid, again, I am not saying that Ouija boards are anything more than a piece of cardboard and plastic or not. I don't know. I've never seen any proof myself that they've been real. I've never played with the Ouija board though, because I'm not so skeptical that I'm willing to play with fire as an adult. Again, if I was a kid and I didn't believe in it, I probably would have done this too, just as, you know, like, haha, it's so fun. But I do have a Ouija board that I bought at an Oddities Expo, and it is from the 90s, so it's a few decades old, and I don't play with it because, again, even if I was going to play with the Ouija board, I wouldn't play with it in my home. I feel like that's just, again, it's not that I believe it, but I just don't know. I'm not positive, right? So why play with fire? And so I wouldn't use it in my home. And I will say that I did take it out of my rat room because it used to be in my studio in this room, which is also the rat's playroom. And I kept it in here because it went with all my cool, you know, with all my gothy, dark, spooky stuff. And the rats, ever since I got the rats, I got it a few weeks before I got the rats. And then I was, as many of you know, if you follow my Instagram and some of my personal stuff, the rats had so many issues ever since I got them. Could it be related? Probably not. I mean, it's probably most likely has nothing to do with it, right? I was just a first-time rat owner and shit went down, you know, but one of the rats passed away shortly after I got them because of a freak accident, which again, I'm not going to get into because it's traumatizing for me, but other stuff was just happening. And so I was like, you know what? It's not going to hurt to take the Ouija board out of this room, even if it's completely unrelated, completely could be nothing more than plastic and cardboard. But would it hurt to take it out of the room? No, because they do say that animals can sometimes be really susceptible to paranormal stuff. So it's like, if it is possibly bringing some bad juju in the room, especially for little sensitive creatures like rats, like, would it hurt to take it out? No. So I moved it to my living room downstairs in my townhouse, and it's been in my living room ever since. And again, I've had no issues whatsoever. I've never gotten bad vibes from it or whatever. And again, I'm not going to say like it resolved the issues with the rats because I resolved the issues with the rats. It could have just been me. I don't want to say one way or the other because I have no idea. Just because I've had less issues with the rats since then, I don't know if it's attributed to the Ouija board, but just some stuff to think about. So sorry, that was kind of a tangent, but it just reminded me of my own Ouija board that I have, which I love, but still. Okay. So things started happening. My parents have a 3-season room, like a porch, that used to have a TV and a couch on it. One night I was laying on the couch watching TV, and I was facing the inside of the house, specifically at the bay window. I've attached an example of what it kind of looked like. Oh, I love bay windows. I want a bay window someday. It was dark, and both of my parents were in bed upstairs. I was laying there when I saw what looked like my dad walking into the bay window like it was a doorway. I literally sat up and said, "Dad?" and heard nothing. I got up and nothing was there. I went upstairs, and both of my parents were sound asleep, and so was my brother. My dad is pretty tall, 6'3", and the figure I saw looked like a tall man, so I just assumed it was him. Turns out when the house was first built, the bay window was the front door. I'm guessing that's why it looked like the figure was simply walking out a door. The next weird thing that happened was that I was in my room packing for a trip. It was the middle of the day and all of the windows were closed. The windows in my old bedroom were actually painted shut, so I couldn't open them even if I wanted to. I had a hanging chair that was mounted to the ceiling. I was sitting there packing when all of a sudden the chair started violently swinging back and forth. I got up and just kind of stood there watching it in horror and then ran out of the room to get my mom. When she came back into the room just minutes later, it was completely still again. Ugh, of course it was. Like nothing had ever happened. It's so annoying. Like, can you keep doing it so that I can have a witness here? Like, come on, ghost. My mom just insisted it must have been a breeze, which obviously makes no sense because you said the windows don't open. So a few weeks later, after the chair incident, my very skeptical friend was sleeping over. I had a trundle bed, so she was directly next to my bed, just lower down. We were both dozing off when it felt like she started kicking my bed. It was rocking back and forth. I said something along the lines of, "Quit it, I'm trying to sleep," and she shot up and grabbed my arm. I looked at her and her bed was rocking back and forth as well. Neither of us were doing it. I had a cat and a dog, but neither were in the room, and I don't think that they would be strong enough to move the beds like that. We kind of just held on to each other for a minute and stared at each other, and then it suddenly stopped. She was super freaked out and was going to go through every logical explanation in her brain to try to discount it being paranormal. She couldn't think of anything, and neither could I. We ended up sleeping on the couch that night. Oh, wow. Like you were both so scared that you couldn't sleep in that room. Oh my gosh. Most of these events happened within the first year of us living in the house, which is odd. There were a few more instances throughout the years of me living there, like footsteps when no one was there, strange figures, and things being misplaced. Then it kind of stopped for a while. I never really had a sinister feeling when these things were happening, and I started joking that the ghost Ben was like Casper, the friendly ghost, and just wanted to make his presence known. A few years later, I was about 18. I'm currently 24, and I had a different friend over. No one was home, so we were just hanging out in my room. My room was on the second floor, and there was an attic right above where my room is. I never really liked to go up there. It gave me the creeps, and there was a fire up there in the 1940s, so everything was charred up there. There is actually a chunk of wood missing from one of the beams up there where a firefighter came up with an axe and whacked a chunk out to make sure that it was stable, which is kind of funny. Anyway, my parents had smoke detectors up there, obviously, and my friend and I were just chilling in the room doing each other's hair or something and listening to music, when all of a sudden we hear the smoke detector going off loud. Not chirping like when the battery is going out, but full on beeping. We started running around to make sure that there wasn't a fire somewhere, and we couldn't find anything, and we couldn't figure out which alarm it was. Finally, I realized that it was coming from the attic. So I go up there and look around for the alarm. It ran on batteries alone and wasn't hardwired into the wall, so it was just sitting on one of the boxes we had up there. There was no smoke or anything, and I could not figure out how to get the alarm to shut off. I had figured that it was just faulty or something. I bring it downstairs and it's still going off loudly. Oh, I hate that. And try to open it to take the batteries out. And once I got it open, my stomach dropped because there was no batteries in the smoke alarm, like none at all. And it was still going off. I guess my dad had put a hardwired one up there, and this one was the old one, so he had taken the batteries out of it. My friend and I are trying to figure out how to get this thing to shut up, and considering taking a hammer to it when it suddenly just shut off. Does anybody else think of that episode of Friends? It's one of the best episodes of Friends, in my opinions, where I think it's called the one where everyone's up all night, something like that. And Phoebe has the smoke alarm in her apartment that won't go off. And she has the safe, it's not paranormal, it's funny, but she goes off and she's like, and she like takes the batteries out. She puts it down the garbage disposal. And then like the firefighters come and they're like, you can't do that. It's so funny. I'll insert a clip here.
Okay, so this wire is connected to this wire, which plugs into here. Okay, so to get the beeping to stop, all I have to do...
The whole ordeal lasted about 5 minutes. I had told my friend about Ben in the past, and after a few minutes of trying to figure out what the fuck just happened, she suddenly started freaking out. She said the song that had been playing when the alarm started going off was Benny and the Jets by Elton John. Literally the minute it turned on was when the alarm went off, and when it suddenly stopped is when the song ended. Obviously this just could have been a complete coincidence, but it is odd that the spirit told us his name was Ben and that the alarm went off when Benny and the Jets played. I also talked to my dad and he said it was really weird that it went off at all since there was no batteries and it wasn't hardwired to the wall. We threw it away and it never happened again. That is so funny. Yeah, maybe Ben the ghost liked the song because he was like, oh, that's my name. I think it is. If you do have a spirit here, I think it's a friendly spirit, luckily, but that's so crazy. If anybody can comment down below if they are more familiar with smoke detectors. Can a smoke detector go off if it's both detached from the wall and doesn't have batteries in it? Is there some way it could be faulty and the wiring inside could still make it go off like that? I would be really curious to know, and I'm sure the story writer would as well. I moved out when I was 19 and my mom came over to my new house one day with a book about Grand Haven's history. There was an entire section about a Civil War veteran named Benjamin. My mom is a skeptic, but she was really eager to show me this. There was a photo of him, and as soon as I saw it, I just knew that that was Ben, our ghost. I don't know how I knew, I just did. He has a really cool story. He was a Civil War vet and worked at my parents' house when it was first built. He was one of the kitchen hands. Oh my gosh. He also was one of the first Black men in Grand Haven to own his own property and was very highly regarded and well liked by everyone he knew. He lived out his life in his own house and always talked about how much he loved the house that he worked in, my parents' house. Oh my gosh. So I'm pretty sure that this Benjamin is the Ben who we talked to on the Ouija board and who is haunting their house. I have no idea why or how their spirit is in the house, but I am almost positive. Again, this could all just be a crazy coincidence, and I guess all the things that happened could have been explained logically, but that's no fun. Thanks for reading. I hope this makes it into a video someday. P.S. I also attached a photo of my parents' house. Feel free to share in the video. This house is kind of famous around our town just because it's so old and there's tons of info out there about it. Best, and this is Addie. Thank you so much, Addie. I am gonna have Taylor block out what the house is called because I just feel like that makes it really easy for people to find, and I want the light went off over here. It's not a ghost. Winnie's just on top of the light looking for snacks that the rats left back there. That's all. I'm going to block that out. If you want to tell people in the comments, if people are curious and you want to tell them where it is, I'll let you do that yourself, but I don't want to accidentally dox you or anything or your parents. So I'm going to leave that up to you. Thank you so much, Addie. That was a beautiful story. That was so I loved your structure of how you wrote that too. And I'm actually a little bit, because of your story, I'm actually a little bit more convinced about Ouija boards now, because everything just seems so on the nose, but not over the top. You know what I mean? There's a chance that anybody who sends me stories could be completely making them up, right? There's just that chance. I tell people to send in only true stories, but I can only control that to the extent that people follow that rule, right? I assume that Addie is telling the truth here, and I can tell you that I am going to look up this information that she left and double check her story too, so you can take my word for it. But again, because I do believe that this story is true, even if there was coincidences and stuff, obviously the Ben thing on the Ouija board and then actually having a Ben that worked in this house back in the day is so bananas. And I love this story. One of my favorite stories to date, because I love it when there's like stuff going on and then people look up the history of whatever building they think is haunted, and then it's like a light bulb and they're like, oh, that's why, I just love stories like that. So, okay. Thank you so much, Addie. We're going to move on here. This is story number 2. Dearest Hannah, my name is Abby, and you don't need to censor it. I have 2 stories to share. First, when I was in the 6th grade, which was about 5 or 6 years ago. It's short, but it truly did leave a mark on me. It was about 6 p.m. when my mom and I got to my friend's old house. They were moving to San Francisco, and we were in charge of cleaning the house before the showing and pictures for the real estate lady. It was eerie, very quiet. We decided to start upstairs and work our way down. Cleaning went pretty normal at first, besides the pit in my stomach that I couldn't really drop. Eventually, we made our way to the basement. At this point, I was scared, and my mom thought it was pretty creepy too. It's not like it was an old house. The basement was finished, but it was more so the feeling of us not being alone. My mom sent me along to check the garage, which I did alone. The lights didn't work in the garage, so it was dark. After opening the door and standing there for a minute, I vividly remember seeing glowing eyes deeper into the garage, like somebody was crouched down. Naturally, I freaked out as it scared me shitless. Yeah, that's terrifying. Oh my gosh. My mom came over and asked me what happened, and I was sobbing. All I could think was that there was a person in the garage, which was supposed to be empty. My mom started to freak out because I rarely made things up like that, and I was genuinely panicked. We checked all around the outside, seeing if there was a way anybody could have gotten in, but there was no entry from outside besides the garage doors, which were kept shut. And the only way in was through the inside of the house. We got out of that house as quickly as possible. In the car, we debated on whether or not it was a person or possibly an animal, but it just wouldn't make sense seeing there wasn't really any animal that could get in. My mom decided on it being a raccoon, but I never fully believed that. It took me a whole week before I could finally sleep at night. The next story is more recent. As I've gotten older, scary things didn't really have the same effect. I actually really like horror now. I purchased a haunted doll off eBay about 2 years prior. Her name is Ramona, and the description said that she's most likely a mother who passed. I'm still skeptical, but a few occurrences begged me to rethink my opinions. My friend and I decided to do a little seance, incense, candles, all the shebang. As we were asking questions, one of the candles went out. There were no fans in my room and the air was still. Again, you could just say that it was a coincidence and I wouldn't blame you, but it's the way the candle went out that was intriguing. It was as if somebody pinched it out. You could hear the crackle as well. I have a loft bed, and this is important. Days passed, and I'd often hear faint whispers and see the shadow of a person. I could have just been off my meds. But I truly believe I bought a ghost off eBay. My bed shakes when you climb into it, but not when you're lying down. I found myself waking up either in the middle of the night or in the morning to my bed shaking. Sometimes I'd smell a woman's perfume, one I most definitely didn't own. When I wasn't home, apparently my mom would hear noises from upstairs, like small bangs and whatnot. Though these paranormal occurrences died down over the 2 years I've had Ramona, and I've added to my collection of haunted dolls, it still happens on occasion. Like how some people have house cats, I have house ghosts. Even if these don't end up on a video, I hope you enjoyed hearing about them, and I'll write again soon since I have plenty of stories to share. Love, Abby. Thank you so much, Abby. That's really interesting. My logical explanation for the first story, I would also think that that would be a raccoon. or some kind of creature that it's important to remember that even if the doors are sealed and there's no way for them to get in through like the main entrance, raccoons and other creatures do have a tendency to find holes in the foundation, and they can sometimes find a little area in the roof that they can crawl into. Squirrels at my parents' house have done that, and we also talked about that really scary TikTok on one of the TikTok debunking videos of that woman who saw that crazy hand come out of her ceiling, and it ended up being a mom raccoon with a bunch of babies. So I wouldn't totally rule out the possibility that it was a logical explanation, like a raccoon in the dark that was just like, what are you doing here? And thankfully it didn't come out more, and that it was just trying to like lay low until you left. But I wouldn't discount that completely. As for your haunted doll, I have thought so many times about buying a haunted doll for myself because I really like the idea of getting one off eBay. And if I did ever do it, I would definitely get a kind spirit. You know, I'd be like the beginner haunted dolls where you get one that is supposedly a kind spirit and not gonna like actually do anything bad or malevolent. Again, even if it's all hogwash, like still just for peace of mind. But it's just so hard because I feel like a lot of people can just sell those dolls and just say they're haunted. And I feel like a lot of the people on eBay just go buy dolls from antique shops and then sell them for hundreds of dollars claiming that they're haunted. And it's just so hard to like know which ones are authentic or which ones the owners truly do think are haunted or not. So if you have any tips for how to buy legit ones on eBay or how to spot fake sellers, I'd be really interested to know. But regardless, thank you so much for your story, Abby. This next story starts, "Hey Hannah, love your channel. Been binging all your videos while I draw in my free time. I use they, them pronouns and go by Ren. I also live in Washington now." Oh, fun. Love Washington, as you know. That's why I live here. Yeah. Here is the scariest story with proof that I have. Disclaimer, I did submit this to a newspaper for Halloween years ago. So reverse image search shows that article and the other ones who stole it from there. But I took it in the newspaper. It's under my dead name. Oh, okay. That's really interesting to know. And thank you for the clarification to clear up any confusion, because I'm sure somebody would go look that up and then accuse you of lying. So I do appreciate the disclaimer. Anyway, it was 2014. I was in college at Indiana State University. Me and my friend had gone to visit Hell's Gates, about an hour from there. It's an old tunnel in the middle of nowhere. There was no cell service or even radio service out there. It's said to be majorly haunted, and I can confirm this, though I'm not 100% on the backstory. We had gone a few times at night, which is so scary, oh my god, but decided to go during the day. It was just me and my friend. There were a few houses scattered out there, but nothing close to the tunnel. When we reached the crossroads we needed to turn on, there was a German Shepherd sitting on the corner of it. We could have taken that as an omen and left, but we didn't. We continued on and spent some time there. I took a lot of photos, but we didn't review them until we left, as to not scare ourselves in case we caught something. Eventually we left, and while driving back through the tunnel, my car went haywire and the speedometer and RPMs and all that were going crazy. We heard thumping on my trunk and bolted out of there. We made it back to the small town, half hour or so away, to the gas station to look over the photos. And this is what I captured. There were... Winnie! Actually, I'm going to show you guys Winnie because I bought her a handkerchief last night. Come here. Sorry to interrupt the stories. Come here. Come here. Do you want to show everybody your bandana? Look, she got a little Halloween bandana last night. Are you so cute? Look it. Winnie sighting. There was also scratches on the outside of the trunk of my car. They weren't there before. I still get chills thinking about it. Sorry that I'm not the greatest writer. Thank you, and I hope you share this with others. Oh my gosh. Yes. And this bridge, it kind of looks like Bunnyman Bridge, even though I know it's not the same bridge, but Bunnyman Bridge is another like supposedly haunted bridge. So did you not see this figure when you were driving through it? That's bananas. We continued and spent some time there. I took a lot of photos, but we didn't review them until we left, as not to scare ourselves in case we caught something, which you did. Okay, so my understanding is that you didn't see anybody around, and then afterwards you were looking at the photos, because that's definitely a figure. Is it possible that there was I guess that's not possible if you didn't see anybody there because it kind of looks like somebody maybe on their bike cycling down through the tunnel on their bike from the distance or something. But if you took that picture and you were looking right at it and there was nothing there, then like, who am I to suggest that, right? Oh, that's so bananas. That's a creepy picture. That looks like a creepy bridge too. Okay, the next story for today goes, "Hi Hannah, I've been listening to all the scary story videos lately and I thought I might share one. I'm not sure how well this story will translate into writing, but it's still worth telling. This is the story that should have ended up being paranormal, but ended up being potentially very dangerous. I went to college in central Indiana, and anyone who has been to Indiana knows that there's not a lot to do there. Somehow being bored all of the time resulted in trips to use a makeshift Ouija board, a cut-up pizza box lid with Rick and Morty shot glasses for a planchette. Close to the college was a railroad bridge that was supposed to be haunted. According to news articles, at the time of building, I think around 100 years ago, many of the workers fell to their deaths during construction. At the time, it was shortly after Halloween, and the entrance to the bridge ended up being blocked off for a reason. Luckily, using maps, we were able to discover that there was a neighborhood that also led to the bridge. So we decided to drive into the neighborhood, and at the time, it was probably about 2:45 in the morning. We were heading down a street that has streetlights, but because the end of the road turns to gravel, the lights and the houses sort of thin out and drop off the further you go. A car passed us going the opposite direction. We found this odd because we hadn't passed anyone else on the road in the area for quite some time. A couple minutes later, I slow my car to a stop and turn on my brights. The pavement turns to gravel and the sides of the road are starting to slope. There's all sorts of weeds and debris on the sides. I start telling everyone that I'm not about to off-road my car just to get to a bridge when the girl who was in the passenger seat nudged my arm. I looked over at her and she just sort of nodded in the direction of the weeds that were now moving. I stared for a few seconds before I realized that there was a man dressed in black crouched behind them, staring back at us. He was crouched behind the bushes or behind the weeds. He started to stand at about the same time the girl in the back seat told me I needed to throw the car in reverse immediately. I proceeded to turn the car around as fast as I could, but not before noticing a second man emerging from the opposite side of the road. I left the neighborhood and didn't stop the car until we ended up at the main road. Needless to say, I didn't sleep for a couple days. Love your channel. You bring me so much joy. Keep doing you, Hannah. Thanks a big bunch. And that's from Kendra. Thank you, Kendra. Oh my gosh, that's terrifying. It's wild that you were like already probably in a really heightened headspace too, because you were like kind of aware of possible paranormal stuff that was going to happen. And then instead of paranormal stuff, which would have been like scary, but what you were looking for and would have been fun still, you got creepy men. So many of these stories, I have yet to find a story about a creepy woman creeping out young children. And this is just bananas. What is it with creepy men hiding in the woods or in the weeds and then just like waiting for people to come? And whether they're just trying to scare people, maybe they're not actually planning on doing anything and they're just trying to scare people, but it doesn't really matter, does it? Because you're still scaring the absolute bejesus out of someone. I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's terrifying. I wonder if you ever were able to go back. Yeah. Thanks, Kendra. All right, this is story 5. This is going to be our last story for today. This one goes, "Hi, Hannah. I've been a fan of yours for several years now, and let me tell you, I was thrilled when you decided to start reading scary stories. These videos are perfect to listen to while driving or when I'm at work. If you do decide to read this one, you can call me Star. I am a haunt actor, and I work at one of the most well-known haunted houses in my area. I've done this for 6 seasons now, and it's one of my most favorite things to do. I just went to my favorite haunt last night. I get to have fun scaring people and pretending to be a monster while goofing off with some really great people. It's a blast. I've seen a lot since becoming a haunt actor, workers scaring each other with props, malfunctioning animatronics, patrons who punch and generally act like assholes to the actors, but the creepiest thing I've ever witnessed had nothing to do with the scary decor or anything supernatural. It was my acting partner." Okay, I'm going to derail for just a second. I just went to a haunt last night. I go to Maris Farms in Buckley, Washington. I've been to a couple others, and in my opinion, it's the best, at least in Washington. I have to drive a while to get there, but me and my friends went last night and it's such a blast. They change it every year. So if you go every year, they always change a bunch of the stuff up. It's really immersive. It's really scary. The detail, they spend so much production value and stuff. So last night I went and it was so funny though, because we were in the haunt with my friends and one of the actors scared us and I was like bantering with him a little bit as he was scaring us, and then he comes back out, you know, because it's a corn maze, so he comes back out the other side and he recognized me from my YouTube channel. It was so sweet. He totally full on broke character and was like, I watch you on YouTube. And I couldn't really talk to him because he had other people to scare that were behind us and everything. But it was just really funny because he full on broke character to talk to us for a minute, because one of my other friends is one of the makeup artists for that haunt as well. So I asked him like, oh, did so-and-so do your makeup and everything? And it was just a really funny moment. That was definitely the most unique experience I've had being recognized. Not that I get recognized that often. It's happened a few times, but that was definitely the most unique experience I've ever had. So Scary Ice Cream Clown Man, if you're ever watching this, thank you so much for the very, very special experience. I really, really liked your set and your portion of the haunt too. And thank you for being a subscriber or watching my videos or whatever you do. So yeah, all that to say, I love haunts, and I picked this story because it's like in the 7 days of Halloween, and I really wanted a haunt or a story from one of the actors' point of views. I thought that was going to be real fun. So, okay, I digress. Let's get back into this. I'm going to repeat the last line just so we're on the same page. So the creepiest thing I've ever witnessed had nothing to do with the scary decor or anything supernatural. It was my acting partner. At the end of my first season, the haunted house had a special weekend after Halloween where they turned off 90% of the lights in the haunt, and the patrons were sent through with just glow sticks around their necks. These glow sticks made it easy for actors to spot them while giving the patrons a bit of light blindness in the dark. That sounds like so much fun, but also so scary. I will admit I'm a full-on screamer when I go through haunts. I am fully immersed. I don't try to be too cool for school. I'm very much like in it, and I get jump scared and I love it. Oh my gosh, that sounds so scary, but whoever came up with that is a genius. Okay, I was dressed as a creepy lady of the manor type character and given a light that hung around my neck, which I could turn on by pressing a button, and it would illuminate my face from below. The area where I was placed was one that I had worked a few times, so I had a good handle on how to work it. It was a spot called columns, where the patrons turned a corner, walked next to a pair of huge Greek columns, and then turned another corner and proceeded onward into a forest-like area. I would wait behind the second column so that I could see the approaching patrons, then switch to the first column when I saw them so I could pop out and scare them, before generally weaving in and out of the columns to get a couple more scares before they went around the second corner. Oldest trick in the book, right? I'm always like, they're gonna I like it when they go through the corn and then they like cut you off and then they scare you like you think that they're done with you, and then they come back and scare you again. Okay, sorry, I'm giddy with excitement reading your story. Apparently we were very short-staffed on actors that night. I think because many people didn't realize that we were still open and therefore weren't available to work. Casting ended up pulling several people in from operations, people who direct traffic, work the ticket booths, work in the food booths, etc., so they could fill the essential acting spots inside. This meant that quite a few people acting that night did not have any experience or training that the rest of us had received at the beginning of the season. Yeah, I'm surprised they can do that. I'm surprised that you could just bring in random people. Like, I guess you could try your best, but like, it's acting. There definitely is like training and actual acting skill involved. And you also need to be trained in how to deal with patrons if they do touch you, or, you know, if something goes awry, or if somebody is crying or gets scared or wants to be let out, blah, 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 blah. So interesting. Okay. One such guy was placed at the area after mine in the woods. He was taller, bulkier guy in a werewolf suit, and I don't think I'd ever met him before. In contrast, I'm a petite 5'1" female, and my costume reflected that. This guy would linger outside of his hidey hole and walk over and try to make conversation with me in between groups of patrons. He would ask things like my name, how long I've worked there, and what kind of music I'm into, getting to know you small type questions. This was a problem, first of all, because I wasn't interested in date type of conversation, regardless of setting, but also because it's very loud inside of the haunt due to the sound effects and the guy's mask muffles his voice. So communicating more than a few words was a chore. Additionally, he wasn't paying attention to whether patrons were coming through. That was my thought too, is that like if the actors are just sitting there talking, it's going to take people out of the moment too. Patrons are going to be very confused. And because he was distracting me, I couldn't watch for them either, leading to several close calls and missed scares. Even when this guy did try to get a scare, he would pop out of his boo hole, yes, that is the technical term, with a yell, and then stand there awkwardly like he didn't know what else to do. So it was clear that he had never done this before. Oh my God, girl, I would have been livid. I would have been like, dude, I probably wouldn't have been like this either. I probably would have done the same thing and would have tried to be like polite, but kind of like, go to your area, sir. Like, we are working right now. Like, I got to get these patrons. And that's so annoying too, because you were just probably so frustrated because you couldn't move from your spot either. Like, that was your boo hole, as you said. Like, that's the spot where you had to stay. So it's not like you could awkwardly pretend like you had to go off and do something else. You know what I mean? And then it probably wasn't super busy because it wasn't Halloween weekend or before Halloween. So there probably was a lot of lulls in patrons and stuff. Oh man, I would be so livid. I would be so annoyed. It's not how you get a date, dude. Oh my gosh. Okay. Eventually, I stopped humoring him and just focused on watching for patrons. Because I was looking towards where patrons would approach, his spot was after mine. It meant my back was facing his spot. After a long lull, I finally saw the glimmer of approaching glow sticks, so I stepped forward and turned around to hide behind the first column. That was when I saw the werewolf guy's hulking silhouette looming over the spot I had just left, where he'd apparently been standing right behind me for who knows how long. Pissed and terrified, I gestured angrily for him to go back to his area. Good for you. You have every right to be pissed at this point. Oh my God. I don't know if he saw me or just saw the patrons, but he trudged back over to his boo hole and I refused to talk to him for the rest of the night. The worst part is that I never saw him after the night ended and everyone went upstairs to change. So to this day, I still have no idea who was in that werewolf costume. I have a lot of crazy stories from hauntings, like refusing to flinch when a patron pretended to punch me to prove that I wasn't a mannequin, or the time that I met Bebop and Bebe and was in their video, but that one has stuck with me after all these years. I'd be happy to send in more stories from the haunt if you'd liked this one. Give the pets love and scratches for me and keep up your amazing content. And that was from Star. You met Bebop and Bebe? Tell me everything. I need to know. Was Bebe okay? Like, tell me, did you get a vibe from them at all? Because that's crazy. Was she like all made up in makeup and like being, oh my God, did she look like she was in trouble? Wow. Okay. Yeah. I need all your stories. I need all of your stories from the haunt. I loved this. I love haunt stories. I'm so fat. I've always been a behind the scenes kind of person. I love watching DVD extras and stuff. And I love watching actors talk about movies they make. I love seeing behind the scenes. And so I think that naturally flows with me really liking to know haunt behind the scenes. My friend that's the makeup artist for the haunt I went to that I was telling you about took us back to the truck last year and let us like see where all the makeup is done and let us like some of the actors walking in and out of the truck, and it's so jarring to see the actors just talk to the staff like normal people through their masks, and then they just saunter off back to their little place, and it's just so cool. So I would love any like haunting stories. I bet you people in the comments could probably agree with me too and say that they would like more haunting stories. So if you have them, please send them in. I'd be really interested to know what your impression of Bebop and Bebe is. If people don't know who Bebop and Bebe is, I'll put a picture with BB blurred and it'll probably ring a bell. I did make a video long ago on it and I do regret not blurring Bebe's face in it because it felt really pointless at the time because she was literally all over the internet. But I do regret that now. I try really hard to not show any children on my channel anymore. Even if their parents made them public, I do think that it's beneficial to not. But so I'll put a picture of them here. So that probably rings a bell. But if you guys don't know, that was the whole TikTok trend, and I'm sure it's still trending, where it's just people think that this poor girl is really, really young and her mom makes her sing and dance for TikToks all the time to like, she's just heavily exploiting her child. And this poor kid is always caked in makeup, and she is often then wearing questionable things, like wearing collars and stuff that are supposed to be part of an outfit, but they look like they're adult oriented stuff. It's really, really creepy, and it's a huge rabbit hole. So if you're going to go down that rabbit hole, like, just, you know, be prepared for how disturbing it is. But that's who Bebop and Bebe is. And it's really interesting that you were in their video too, that she was making her film even out in a haunt. That's so crazy. Wow. Thank you so much, Star. That was really fascinating. I love hearing about this stuff. I love Halloween magic. You guys know me. I love Halloween. Yay. Okay. I'm going to end it there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this 7 days in a row shenanigan. I really hope you enjoyed so many videos. We will be back in November, and I hope you guys also are having a wonderful, very, very safe, fun Halloween, and I will see you all in the next one. Okay. Bye.